Welcome to The Art of Growth and our series on being a student of your story. This is Jim Zartman, and today Joel Hubbard and I will be responding to our Type 6 call-ins. Before we start that, the hub of all of our work is theartofgrowth.org, and you can take a free Enneagram test there as well as an instincts test to get a picture of who you are. We also have a new coaching group starting next month on burnout. That's going to be led by Hillary Kay and Joel Hubbard. And there will be more on that in our newsletter that comes out this Thursday. So make sure you are signed up for that at theartofgrowth.org. All right, let's listen to the first call-in for the sixth panel on being a student of your story, where we ask people if they could go back to one moment, what moment would they go back to and why?
It's Jill, and I am a Type 6. If I could go back to one moment in time, I would go back to April 2010, the moment when my husband sold our business because he was unable to continue working so hard. We both worked in the business and had different strengths, which made us a very good team. The reason I pick this memorable time is I believed him when he said we had to sell because he did not think I could handle the entire business. I told him I could handle it, but he did not agree because his part was difficult and complicated. It was sad to sell this amazing business, but I figured he knew better than I did what I could handle. If I could go back to that time in my life, I would have believed in myself more and not in the fear that drives the six. I would have listened to me and known that I could have done a great job, or if not, at least I tried. I would have created personal financial security and not become the worried person I can often become today. I would have continued to learn and push through different obstacles and not look towards an authority figure to tell me what was right for me. This experience taught me a very important lesson. Facing fear only helps me grow and know I'm capable of many things. Not to let fear guide me, but trust in myself that I will not collapse if things get hard or scary or too loud.
Thank you so much, Jill. That is such a great story, and one that I've heard similarly from a bunch of other Type 6s. We have this list of sort of single words that describe the Type 6 that we do sometimes for companies. And one of them has to do with how 6s do want challenges. Like they want to be challenged. They don't want to, and that's the misunderstanding sometimes, because 6s can come off as being more attuned to the negative, more attuned to the potential threats. And so that it would make you think that they don't want challenges. They don't want risks. But that's not actually true. Deep down inside, they do want that, even if they are afraid. So I think what she mentioned there was exactly that kind of struggle that 6s sometimes feel like others are maybe protecting them from the thing that they want to be challenged by. But on the other hand, they are also self-limiting sometimes because they get in their own way with that fear, that kicks in. So I love that. And I think, there's challenges right now that are probably before a number of Type 6s who are thinking about this and saying, yeah, man.
Well, she mentioned two things that got in her way as far as her having confidence to proceed. One was listening to, her own fear, but then also the authority figure piece, which is I'm listening to an external source more than I'm listening to myself.
Yeah.
Like, of course, this other person knows better. And sometimes it's that confidence of being like, but I now have to live with the what if.
Yeah.
And I don't think the 6s want to live with the what if, because
that's right.
Then it's now a storyline that I don't get to really test and find out like the strength of my idea, the strength of my own capacity, because they want a testing of themselves. They still want to know that they can try something. Yes, that there are potential dangers to it. And yes, I have questions about it. And can I do this? But to live with the what if is often more painful than to live with the failure, to live with the risk.
Yeah.
And so I like how she articulated, here's two things that can stop me.
Yeah.
And I think all 6 should pay attention to, like, what are the things that are going to stop you? Do you have stories where you could go, my need for support stopped me. My fear of the future and what could possibly go wrong stopped me. I listened to the external voice more than I listened to my own, and that stopped me. And going, but I don't want to be stopped.
Yeah.
So what's on the table now
Yeah.
that I know when I'm going to be making a decision that those things are going to be the things that could get in my way.
6s will almost never be entirely self-reliant in the sense of like,
right,
I'm going to go and do this by myself. That's not a good or a bad thing. That is
for sure.
Actually, to my mind, in many regards, tends more towards the good, because what they've learned to do is call on the support of other people. Many of them tend to not rely on the support of other people. Some 6s don't. So they kind of rely more on their own abilities. But they're still looking for the outside authority beyond themselves. So to the 6s, I would say, leverage the fact that you do seek support or that you do seek an external authority figure. Leverage that. Just get the right kind.
Right.
Get the people that are going to say, I believe in you and you can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can help you.
Yeah.
And like attract the kind of people that you want to help you navigate that complicated problem and to solve that problem with you. Bring in someone who's confident to drive through something. Yeah. Like 6s are so good about that. I've worked with a 6 that was a film director, and that was their great thing on set, because basically what a film director is there's someone who stands on set and they've got this massive group of crew that are doing all this technical side, and then you have the cast, which is like the artistic side. And so it's a very complicated role to be in because you're trying to manage the technical and the personal at the same time. And what they're so good at doing is navigating the relationships between all of those pieces. And I've seen a couple of directors that really do this well. They're really dialed into both of these aspects. And so I think when a 6 is in a leadership role, they have this capacity to do that from a leadership perspective, to walk that balance. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, let's hear from our next caller.
Hi, my name is Stacey Hand. I am a 6. If I could go back to one moment, I don't know that it's a moment, but I started being bullied by some people who I thought were my friends in the 4th grade. And I wish that the first time the ringleader had told everyone to run away from me on the playground, God, I wish I would have just been like, yep, you suck, and gone and played with someone else. And instead I cried and I got upset. And I think about that little girl a lot and wish that even if I did care, pretended I didn't care, I think that would have nipped everything in the bud. and that was not the kid I was, right? I was super sensitive, and I'm crying about it 40 years later, right? 35 years later. But I think that then what happened to me from that point onward really set the stage for being an Enneagram 6, planning for a lot of worst case scenarios around relationships, and really impacts who I am today in terms of female friendships and whether I feel secure in them or not. And that really impacts the way I see the world as a 6. But that's what I wish. I wish I had been like, in my little 10-year-old way, been like, fuck you, I'm going to go play with someone else. I wish I'd been braver. And that's not the kid I was. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Oh, Stacey, my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple things come to my mind. One is that there's a point at which you can look back and wish you were different in some sense. And then, what you're doing now is thinking back and wishing you could have been stronger in the face of that bullying. But on the other hand, I think maybe making peace with your 10-year-old self and actually, embracing her. Like, that is your heart. Your heart was broken. Your heart is sensitive. Yeah. Your heart is touched by love or rejection. And that is normal. That is healthy. I don't think to not be affected by it would be better. I think it would be worse. Right. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah. And what's the storyline that plays out had you actually confronted and been that decisive back then? Because we always have the storyline, but we don't really know how that storyline would have played out either as a 6. Immediately, this was hard because I have a 4th grade daughter who's navigating all of these complicated relationships. And I hear playground stories and we have to talk through those. And sometimes she wishes she had done something different. Sometimes I wish she had done something different. But there's a couple things that I want to point out here, because when you're on the playground, that dominant kid, whether they're a bully or they're just the ringleader or whatever, they can feel like an authority figure. So just like the former thing, there's that regret of listening to someone who came across or decided they were an authority figure and other kids went along with it. And so choosing those figures well. But the thing that stuck out is how she talked about the impact it had on worst case scenario thinking in relationships, even to this day.
Yeah.
And that in trying to be a student of her story, she ties something back to that moment. And so if you're coaching this person, what would you say to someone who's like, I still do this worst case scenario thinking in my current relationships?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I would say that that's the defense process that you're using, and makes a lot of sense. We all have one. And yours happens to be to anticipate, to think about what could go wrong, to play out the stories in advance, and oftentimes live in those stories in your mind. But those things never really work entirely. Do they protect? Yeah. I mean, that's the point of the ego, is to protect you from the worst kind of pain.
Right.
Not to actually cause you to thrive in life. So you look at that, you recognize it's a system that was in place to protect me at a young age. I don't need it right now. And what I can do is allow myself to be wounded in relationship, in the dynamic of the conversation with another person. That's terrifying, because we don't want to be wounded. But that wound isn't going to kill you. That wound means you're alive. That wound means you have feelings, you have empathy. That wound means you care about the relationship you're in. And so can you lean more into the heart center, deeper than the fear? Because what's happening is the fear is sort of the gatekeeper. Underneath that, for the 6, are other emotions, sadness, a sense of betrayal. Those things are functioning there. And so to tap into that, to recognize they are there, make peace. You don't solve them. You just notice them and you love them. Right. Thank you for being there. Yeah. You are normal. This is what you should feel in relationship. And so that may happen again. Right? Yeah. And then you call on your body to protect you. Okay, now, what do I do about this? This person hasn't learned, it doesn't seem to care. You may need to say, hey, look, this is how it impacted me. Right? And what you're looking for is not necessarily a solving of the problem. Right. You're looking to see, do they care?
Right.
And if they don't care, then you can say, okay, that's when you say, I need to move on. Right? And you don't remain blindly loyal to people that don't have your best interest at heart.
Right. The other thing I'd add to that is the reminder that our type is always looking for confirmation of its core beliefs. And so for the 6, I desire support, but along with that can come this belief that I'm not going to get it. That in relational situations, I'm not going to receive the support I need. Other people aren't going to really be there for me. And so when we have a confirming story, confirming experience, it kind of doubles down on the story that our type already tells ourselves. And so a painful experience like this can lead someone to say, see, I shouldn't have trusted. See, I shouldn't have made myself vulnerable in this situation. See, relationships do hurt you, which is why I think it's so helpful. I can't remember who was saying it when they were talking about forgiveness, and they were saying, well, people are awful. And they're saying, what was their name?
Yeah.
Because you have to be specific. It's not people. It's not relationships that are going to hurt you. It's not all men who are going to hurt you. It's not all women that are going to hurt you. Name, what was their name? Be specific. Because then you can say, no, that person was hurtful to me, not people. You have to be specific with that if you're going to actually experience the healing from it.
The other thing too is to your point about bias and the way we support and we look for confirmation of our bias it also means that behaviorally, even in the relationship, we kind of sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
So in the case of a 6, there's sort of a either poking of the bear or sort of withholding of the heart center. So like either I'm going to test it by poking a little bit, by saying a few things to see if you're going to be faithful, if you're going to be loyal, or I'm going to withhold a little bit of my heart because I'm afraid you might hurt me. And so then people don't actually know your heart. And then because of that, they inadvertently mostly inadvertently hurt you. And then there's a confirmation. Aha, they don't see. But you never actually said, hey, look that hurts me. Or, hey, here's how I feel. And then people start to know you at the feeling, at the heart level. Your closer friends, they know you there.
Yeah.
And then they learn, oh, okay, that impacted her. Wow. Last time I said something, I think that might have hurt her. So I'm going to make sure that I don't do that again. I'm going to make sure. And then, oh, I want to support you in your heart center. I care about that.
Yeah.
Not in your thoughts, because 6s will tell their thoughts. But the thing is, it's not about your thoughts. It's about what's really, what are you feeling at the emotional level?
Yeah.
And in that way, you feel the support of other people who want, particularly your friends who love you. They want to support you there.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a 6 in one of my coaching groups about this, and she was just talking about, learning how her heart is her truth teller. And it's hard to go there because she's always looking for, well, if I just understand it, if I can just think through it, then it would be the case.
Yeah.
But if I was coaching Stacy, I would want to ask so many questions about this last thing she said. I wish I'd been braver. And so I would have so many questions about, well, tell me the story from that point on. Were there times where, because that experience, you did show up braver? Did that teach you something that you were able to respond differently in the future? Did you feel trapped by it? Are you seeing it now and able to show up differently in your relationships? Like, was there a hidden gift in it somewhere that you're actually able to be different now because of an experience like that? Has the growth journey from some of these experiences led you to a different place now? And if not, what would it take for that to take place?
And what does brave even mean?
Yeah, exactly. What does brave mean?
To you, what does brave mean? That you've got no feeling about it, that you're so guarded that it doesn't affect you.
Because you don't want that, really.
No, or just being able to just dismiss people out of turn because they hurt you. You as a 6 could never live with yourself if you did that.
Right.
Because you don't believe that is the best way to treat people.
Right.
So I totally get it, man.
Yeah.
It's like I resonate with some of that. And, even as a 7, it's like, yeah, I get it. And just as a human.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how many of us have, I wish I would have said this in this situation. And then I remember thinking that for years and then getting to a point where I was quick enough to do it, to say that thing in the moment.
How'd it go?
Horrible. I mean, I just felt terrible the next day.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm like, this isn't better. This isn't really my heart. And so, I was able to think of that thing in the moment, get the laugh, shut that person down, feel strong in that moment, whatever. Kind of, I look back on it, I was like, you know what I don't actually want to be? A dick.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually want to be like this in this situation. And so when I showed up the way I thought I wanted to show up, I actually let myself down more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So much there. And, but thank you for sharing that. And my hope is that this is somewhat helpful to you.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Wanted to pause in the middle of this episode to talk about something we've got going on right now. You may have heard about some group coaching we are starting this month, but Joel and our dear friend Hillary Kay are going to be leading a new group coaching series on burnout starting next month. So I wanted to take a second for you to hear from Hillary.
Hey everyone, my name's Hillary Kay. You may have previously heard my voice on a couple past Art of Growth episodes or seen my face on a few social media posts. I currently partner with Jim and Joel in the corporate training space, and we're continuing to grow our relationship when it comes to more coaching and training with the use of this incredible growth tool. Joel and I will be starting a new coaching series on burnout this April and would love for you to join us. Make sure you're on our newsletter list for the announcement coming this Thursday.
Thank you, Hillary. Okay, let's listen to our next call-in.
My name is Timothy, and I am a Enneagram 6. If I could go back to any time, I think I would go back to my 20th anniversary celebration with my wife. We went to Chicago, Illinois, and enjoyed multiple nights in a nice hotel. I would go back to that time because at that point in time, we really had ample finances, and we were able to enjoy the city and enjoy time together, just the two of us, and really savor our moments together and do whatever we felt like we wanted to do. That was a very nice type of trip, especially in the midst of our lives at 20 years of marriage where we have 5 children. So we thoroughly enjoyed that, and I would love to do something like that again.
Timothy, I love this. I like ending this story because, well, it's a really happy and a beautiful moment. I love that he said we were able to enjoy all of these things, because, well, we had ample finances at the time. I'm in a secure relationship. We were able to pull away and enjoy this time together. It was 20 years in, so it feels like a very stable kind of relationship. And so there's this celebration of life, kind of like an arrival point. Like all of the ducks were in order. All of these things were stable and fine and good. Therefore, we could just enjoy. And I think that's a beautiful thing when a 6 can just go, everything's okay. Everything's deeply okay right now. It's not like there's no concerns. Of course, they had concerns at the time. It's not like everything was fine with all 5 kids. There's no way that could be 100% true all the time. But we were in a place where we could let those things go for a time. And there was enough good things happening that we could really be intentional about enjoyment, celebration. And we always say that that's how important celebration is and enjoyment is, and taking moments like that. Yeah.
I think about how there are different types that respond to spontaneity and to play very differently. And most recognize that they need a little bit in their lives, even if they don't like it necessarily, or they like it in their minds, but in reality, it's like, this is so disruptive.
Right.
But I think it's great that that Timothy, you were able to do this. You were able to have a planned approach to enjoyment and to pleasure and maybe some spontaneity in there. And I think that for 6s, one of the things that is precious to me about them is how much they do for others and oftentimes sacrifice their own ambitions, their own desires.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to have permission. I have to have done everything in order to finally give myself permission to be able to, do the thing that's on my heart to do.
Right.
And so I appreciate that. And I think that hopefully for you, Timothy, and other 6s and those who are in relationship with 6s is like, maybe there's a point at which you can say, rather than wait until everything is there again.
I need an excuse like a 20th anniversary.
Like a 20th anniversary. Right?
Make one up.
It's my 27th anniversary. It's not the number, but
right.
It's fine. It's good enough. And being able to think about each day in that way. Like, what is something I can do today?
Yeah.
That is a small thing of leaning in towards myself, towards what my desires are, and having a little bit of pleasure in that. Like, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to have a good time. Yeah,
I love that. It's great whenever you can create the context where you feel good about celebration. But I think the practice of celebration for everyone is one that frees you up to do it a bit more. So, like, the only thing I'd say to Timothy right now is, is there some other excuse you can come up with celebrating? And even if it can't be, that kind of epic, because he said, had ample finances at the time.
It makes a big difference.
Well, it's funny. I always love like collecting things. And I remember even when I was like at my brokest, I would love going to like half price books and buying a record for $0.25 and then going home and making a cup of coffee and putting that record on. and just finding little ways to enjoy and savor and celebrate a moment, even if it's nothing. I remember like finding change in the couch one day, and it was enough to like go buy like some French vanilla coffee at UDF or whatever, and being like, score. But the thing is, I still remember it, right? So finding excuse and then even smaller ways to celebrate. And I think this is super important for sixes because it does pull them back into the present to celebrate. Like, I'm deeply okay right now. I can look at something that is good and not, fearful in the future or whatever. I can look at something good right now. And the strength of that and what that does in you, the practice of that does in you is such a good thing for a six.
Yeah.
Just be like, I'm going to celebrate in a small way.
Yeah.
Savor a moment. Deeply okay right now.
In certain religious traditions, there's this idea of you work towards the Sabbath. So in the Jewish tradition, in the Christian tradition, there's even some sense of, we do this. But even in the sort of financial way of thinking of earning the the economy is you work and then you get paid. But in the deepest spiritual mystical traditions, it's more that you're working from a place of already rather than working from a place of not yet.
Yeah.
So
you're working from rest.
You're working from rest.
Yeah.
You're working from love, not for love. So that can be helpful sometimes to certain types to kind of reverse that, to flip that. Like, I'm working my way there. Sixes are very dutiful in that sense. Like, I'm working my way towards earning this. And then flipping that around a little bit to say, wait, I already have these things.
Yeah.
Why am I waiting until I get them? Why am I waiting till I deserve it? Why am I waiting until everything is ready or set up or perfect for this at the right moment? Or,
Yeah, because I've seen so many, not just sixes, but other types being like, well, win this, then I can.
Yeah.
Well, is there a little bit of that you can pull into the present? Because if you do, that's a great week.
Yeah.
Making those small memories is just fantastic. And I'd highly encourage anyone just to pause and have some kind of a celebration, this week, even if it's a small thing.
Yeah, because it's generative. If you believe that and you live from that, what it does is it generates more energy, more creativity.
Yeah,
it makes your relationship and your encounters in the relationship much better. If the whole thing is like, I've got to earn my way there to get something from the other person or to get something from life.
Yeah,
it's from a darker place. It's from a place of scarcity. But we have to practice abundance thinking. It's not something you can. It's not like if I say it enough times, I believe it. You never will. Don't bother with putting it on your mirror every morning. Instead, like, practice in the body. Like, okay, I'm going to choose to practice generativity. Like, I'm going to choose to practice abundance mindset. I'm going to choose to do this by. I'm going to set a date and we're going to do this and we're going to have fun and we're going to play and we're going to, and then see the results of that. So yeah.
I love that. So thank you for sharing that, Timothy. That was a beautiful moment. And man, I hope you have many more of those.
Many more, yeah.
Whether they're in these sort of epic, sprawling experiences or in the small moments. Because I think at the end of a story, a love story with someone over years, the moments that stick out are sometimes a surprise. Like, what is it you remember? What's the moments that you pick out and you say, oh, I felt loved in that moment. I felt connected in that moment. I felt support in that moment. And sometimes they're at really hard times and sometimes they're at really small times. And it's great when they're in big times too. So have them all.
Yeah.
It's good. So thank you so much for listening. And since this is a 6 panel, I wanted to bring up something I think they are often gifted in, which is seeing something from different perspectives. And if you notice throughout this series, we're hearing different stories and giving some coaching feedback, but we're also giving different lenses to look at the same story through. And I would encourage you as you go forward and continue to become more of a student of your story and pay attention to which memories your brain thought it was important to hold on to, that maybe you come back to some of those stories and see them with fresh eyes and see them in a different way than perhaps you have before. But for now, my friends, may you learn to thrive more in the gift of the 6 and its capacity to be perceptive, to see from different angles. And may those of you who are 6s Have grace towards that mechanism that is wanting to anticipate danger and seek support. And know that we want you to be safe and supported, and that you are a gift to all of us. Grace and growth, my friends.